Welcome to the IDRPP Mental Health Echo. We're glad that you could join us today. We're really excited about today's session. We are recording this. It is stored on our Canvas page and our YouTube channel. So by joining today's session, you are consenting to be recorded. If you don't, you can go ahead and disconnect from the session. If you've never joined an Echo session, welcome to your first one. We're glad to have you here. We love having this interactive community, so please put your questions into chat. If you feel comfortable, turn on your cameras so that we can all see each other. And then if you also are interested in submitting for a case discussion, narrative, presentation, however you want to call it, so it doesn't seem as scary, please consider doing that. You get such great information from all these amazing colleagues that are on the call today. I love when I get the opportunity to present a case that either I'm having some success with or I'm struggling. It gives me information that I can then take back to those families that I work with, or it helps me also realize, hey, I actually am doing what I need to be doing with this family. So I love it. But as we are talking today, please just remember to protect individual privacy. Try to de-identify any information. If you have any questions about de-identifying, you can reach out to one of our amazing hub members. We all have an asterisk in front of our name, or will now have an asterisk in front of our name, as my reminder tells us to do that. Key components of an echo session is we will have a subject matter expert share with us information. Today we have the lucky opportunity to have two subject matter experts presenting to us. We are going to have Stephanie Anderson, who is going to be talking to us about that social emotional development and how it relates to everything that we all do within our work. And then we have Sandra, and I'm not going to even attempt to pronounce her last name because I know I will not say it correctly. And she is going to be talking to us a little bit about maternal infant mental health or maternal mental health. I don't know why I said infant because that's on my brain probably. And then hopefully we'll have time for our case presentation and feedback. If not, that will happen next month. And then we will always have that opportunity, hopefully, to get to know each other on the call. So building up that professional networking. The next few slides just go over renaming your profile and answering, raising your hand or putting your comments into chat. So if you don't know how to do that, please just reach out to me and I will help you learn how to rename and raise your hand. In order to get a credit of attendance, we do ask that you complete our survey. That survey we take back to our funders to share and show all the amazing things that happen on this call. So in order to get that credit of attendance, we do ask that you complete the survey. Throughout today's session, Tori will be dropping those into chat, as well as some of the PowerPoint presentations, so you can have access to those. Again, they are also stored on our Canvas page, so if you would like information on that, please just email the time to act at aggies.usu and we will get you set up on our Canvas page. It's again where we store everything. I mentioned those case recommendations that you guys all have. We compile them all together for whoever presented the case, but they're also then available for you guys to use with the families or clients that you work with. So you might have heard a really great idea in one of your little breakout groups, and those case recommendations will have it, and you can always go back to the Canvas page and download those. They are a great way, again, to just get those recommendations from all the people on the call today. And if you're interested in doing that, please just reach out to Time to Act at aggies.usu.edu and we will get you set up on the schedule. We do have social media accounts that we have amazing staff that shares information about our sessions, things that were shared with us during sessions, other resources. So if you've not done so, take a minute to follow us on social media. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing and turn the time over to Stephanie, and she will be, Stephanie, where are you on my screen? There you are. And you're on mute, just in case you didn't know that.
You might have to remind me to help me out for some other things too, Janelle. So thank you for inviting me to present today. It's nice to see some familiar faces, and it's nice to meet some other ones. So do you want me to take it away, Janelle?
Yep, go ahead and take it away.
All right. So Janelle asked me to talk about what is social and emotional development, and more importantly, or just as importantly, about some services that you can use for children to make sure that they're developing on track. And so I said I would be happy to do that. So the very first thing that we need to recognize is what is social and emotional development. And most of you in this room today use this on a daily basis, whether in your private life, in your professional life. But so we're just going to go over some basic definitions of what it is. And I just am going to use something that I use all the time, and that's Pathways. Pathways is a really great way to find out child development definitions and explanations. The one thing that I really like about Pathways, it really helps those parents that we're working with, maybe people that aren't working in the field. It has clear, concise information. And so I'm just sharing one of the things that I like to share when people are asking me, what is social and emotional development and what are the basics of it? So social and emotional are skills that are essential. And I want you to remember that, that it is not just something that it can make a good difference, but they're essential. And that's for connecting with others. That's that social aspect. But the emotional aspect is it helps us manage our own emotions. And so when do we start developing? Right at birth. Those things start happening right at birth, and then they continue throughout our adulthood. And so what are some of those skills that help us? So the skills that we learn or we develop over time they help us make and keep positive friendships. They help us resolve conflicts with those relationships. This is one that I really like, is they help us gain confidence. Another one is they help us manage stress. And the last one that takes longer is they help us feel empathy. So how do we teach it? Well, we serve as a model, and that's the most important one, is that we serve as a model of that emphasis on healthy behaviors. And then some other ways that we do it is we do it through interactions, and children do that through their play, which is why play is so important. We do it through stories. We do it through learning. And fortunately and unfortunately, a lot of the times we do it through media. So that's why it's very important that the media that are being shared and being consumed is things that are healthy. So as we go through this is something that I found interesting when I was studying child development, and then when I started teaching it. And there is no consensus in the literature on a definition of emotion. Isn't that interesting? Are there definitions? Yes, there are. But there's not one consensus of what it is. The term is taken for granted in itself, and most often it's defined with a reference list, which we use, and that's fine. But it is something that is not like a mathematical equation that we can just define it. And that reference list is anger, disgust, fear, joy, sadness, and surprise. And even in the educational realm, those lists might be a little bit different. So any comment on what you think about, what do you mean there's no consensus of how is this then, do we define it and how do we work with it? Any comment? And I can't see all of you, so you're just going to have to come off of mute and say something if you want to. Okay, I'll go on to the next slide. This one was a little mind-boggling for me when I first started learning it and starting teaching it, is that emotions are described as a physiological state and are generated subconsciously. Usually they are automatic bodily responses to certain internal and external events. By contrast, feelings are subjective experiences of emotions, and they're driven by our conscious thoughts and our reflections of those thoughts. And this means that we can have emotions without feelings, but we can't have feelings without emotions. So as I was thinking about this, when I was starting to learning about emotional development and what emotions are, I reflected back to my experiences as I was an adult and a young adult. And I remembered a lot of people saying to me that just did not resonate was that no one can make you feel a certain way. And I'm thinking, really? Because when certain events happen, I feel disgust. And so actually reading this and digesting it helped me understand it, because a lot of those things were subconscious and they were automatic, and they were because of past or maybe present external or internal events. And I think what the person was trying to tell me is that as how I reacted with those feelings was what I could control or not control. And so one of the things that's really important in early childhood education is that we know that our experiences are at the very beginning of life. And so a lot of those automatic responses are going to be because of past experiences. And so as we help children and manage their emotions and help them work through it, remember it's a physical response and it's almost subconsciously done. But how we deal with it with our feelings is what is make it, we can decide what to do or not. So we do know that we made a list of primary emotions, and that list is one that most educators agree on, but it's not just those 6 emotions that we have. As you can see with this primary emotion wheel, there's other feelings, emotions, and things that can come from it. So if you look at anger, humiliation, being humiliated comes from that. Being critical or being distant, those are all on that wheel of different emotions. And one of you, and I'm just calling on someone that I can see, which is Heather. Heather might have a same emotion, but her feelings or reactions to that might be different than somebody else's. And that's where we're going to see differences. Okay. So as we go through this, it's important to understand that emotions start at birth. Those main emotions start at birth. And by about 7 months, a child is being able to recognize as a person as an infant between positive and negative emotions. Now, positive emotions include the joy and surprise, and where the negative emotions include fear, sadness, and disgust and anger. One thing that is really important for all of us, no matter who we work with, is sometimes we have been taught, or I was, is that anything negative I want to get rid of, that it's not something that I want to have in my life. But negative emotions and negative experiences are normal life. And we don't just get rid of them. We learn to manage them. We learn to deal with them. We learn to resolve conflict with them. And so it doesn't mean something that we don't want to happen, just like we want only positive experiences. Those are things that we know normally are going to happen. So how do we help children with not only the recognition, but with managing those emotions? This is something that when I was taught this and then started teaching it myself, I had thought, boy, I wish I would have known this when my kids were little. I went back to school when most of my kids were older, and I was like, wow, this would have been helpful for me. And the thing that would have been helpful is a lot of times with emotional development, I felt like I was doing something wrong when my child was actually acting normal. And that's why for all of us in our work, when we can describe something as normal, but actually to be able to model different behavior or help children develop is where we want to go. And so this is something that is just a visual representation of being able to recognize development. All of us in this room realize that there is stages and ages to physical development. We know that when a child is born, we can't ask them to walk over and get a diaper so we can change that like we could a 2-year-old. We recognize that and we see that in stages. But what we sometimes forget is emotional development is gradual, and it takes a lot of years, and it takes a lot of practice, and it takes a lot of times. And when we start to understand the stages that represent in emotional development, it can help parents and educators and anyone that work with children help understand them, but also help them manage those emotions. So before a child is 5 and below, a child only has one emotion. My oldest son now has 5 children of his own, but when I go back and look at my journal of when he was an infant and sometimes 3 years old, I would write repeatedly things like, he's so happy one moment, and the next he's on the floor throwing a full-thrown tantrum. What am I doing wrong? And those were some of my thoughts. Once again, I was reflecting on what could I do as a better parent instead of realizing, oh, before the age of 5, a child will have one emotion and it will change very quickly. How many of you have seen this over and over again when a child can be as happy as can be, and the next moment their emotions will switch. They might be having the time of their life, and then the next moment, because of something, an external or an internal event, something will happen. But children can only hold one emotion at that time. This next one is my favorite one, is that they can have multiple emotions from the same emotional cluster. So they might be feeling one way and describing it another way, but they'll have different ones. Now, I want to talk about this for a second, is that it will once again switch very quickly. And the emotion that is the most prominent at that time will override any other emotions that that child has experienced so far. So I just want to give you an example from my grandson's life right now. He is just about 5. He's just about turning 5. So he fits in this realm right now. And he lives in another state. And last summer, he called me and he was telling me that he got invited to his very first birthday party. He was so excited. He could not wait. He showed me the invitation. He told me it was his best friend. He could not wait to go. When he got home from buying his present, he could not talk about anything else except his birthday party to his best friend Jackson's house. And he could not wait to go. And then when he went afterwards, his mom called and talked to me about this. He got there and he didn't want to go. He didn't want to go. He's like, I don't want to go. I don't want to go. And his mom was like, you've been waiting for this for 2 weeks. He's like, no, I'm scared. And his mom, because she's a great mom, she said, it is scary to go to new things. You've been to Jackson's house a lot, but now there's people you don't know. But remember, you've got the present. Would you like me to go in with you? She just helped him have empathy for that feeling, but she also reminded him of why he was excited. And so that is what's going to happen a lot in children with this age, is that they're going to have one emotion for one thing and the next minute it's going to change. And that's why empathy for an adult is important. What's really funny is a week after the birthday party, I got to go to his house and visit. And I got to hear that he hates Jackson. And I'm like, what? You love Jackson. He's like, no, Jackson gets a birthday party and I don't. Well, number one, his birthday isn't for a couple months. But number two, his mom doesn't do birthday parties. And I said, oh, are you sure you hate Jackson, or are you just sad that you don't get to have a birthday party? And he's like, no, I hate Jackson. And so we talked about it, and I empathized with him and we talked about it. But those are some of the things that children experience, and they're experiencing real life. And we need to understand that that's a development. It's interesting to me that it isn't until 8 and 11 that we can have multiple emotions from opposite emotional clusters in succession. And then it's not until they're 10 to our age that we're able to multiply those emotions and do it at the same time. I don't know about you, but I still sometimes have a hard time managing all those emotions. I have to say, I present for my career a lot, but coming today gave me a stomach ache. I was scared. I knew some people on here have a lot more expertise than I do. I knew that some of my coworkers were going to be here, and I have to say, I'm managing all kinds of emotions, and it's difficult. Sometimes I feel like I'm in that 5-year-old stage. And that's one thing that we need to understand, is that also emotional development can depend on what else is going on in the child's life. They might reach a plateau and then might switch back because of a life experience. But once again, what's important for us is for parents and people to understand that it's up to us to help model behavior and help manage and resolve those conflicts. So, Tori, can I ask you to read this paragraph?
Yes.
Thank you.
Of course. Early childhood understanding and screening of emotional development is important for people who work with both children and adults because emotional skills developed in the earliest years form the foundation for lifelong mental health, learning, and relationships. If you work with either group, you're often working with the results, positive or negative, of those early experiences.
And so that's why, thank you, Tori. I think it's important for us to know that maybe you don't work in the early education field, and maybe you're not working with those direct people, but what you're dealing with is what their emotional development and their foundation is. And so it is important for all of us to understand the critical awareness and why it's important. And so I'm going to move in a little different direction and talk about ways that we can screen for social and emotional development in children. But the first thing that I'm going to do is I want to share a video from the Center of the Developing Child from Harvard University. Once again, just like Pathways, I use this site all the time. They have great research, articles and videos, and also they have things that are just very brief, that if you need something very brief, but it's something that I turn to all the time. I just want to make sure that I'm sharing my sound, and I am before I play this. I'm gonna get an ad first.
The healthy development of young children in the early years of life literally does provide a foundation for just about all of the challenging social problems that our society and other societies face. What we're learning, not just from behavioral and developmental research, but also now from exciting developments in neuroscience and molecular biology, is how much early experience from birth, in fact, even before birth, how much this experience literally gets into our bodies and shapes our learning capacities, our behaviors, and our physical and mental health. The brain is basically built from the bottom up. First, the brain builds basic circuits that are responsible for basic skills, and then more complex circuits are built on top of those basic circuits as we develop more complex skills. Biologically, the brain is prepared to be shaped by experience. It's expecting the experiences that a young child has to literally influence the formation of its circuitry. It's built into our biology. The interaction between genetics and experience that shapes brain architecture is embedded in the reciprocal relationships that children have with the adults in their lives. And by that we mean what we refer to as the serve and return nature of children's interaction with their adults. Development and the impact of experience on development is not a one-way street. It's a back and forth interaction. The brain is a highly integrated organ which has multiple sections that specialize in different kind of processes. So we have parts of the brain that are involved more in cognitive function and other parts that are involved in processing of emotion and parts involved in seeing and hearing. So if a child is emotionally kind of well put together and socially competent, that will affect more positive and productive learning. And if a child is preoccupied with fears or anxiety or is dealing with considerable stress, no matter how intellectually gifted that child might be, his or her learning is going to be impaired by that kind of emotional interference. So when we talk about healthy development in the early years, and particularly when we talk about preparing children to succeed in school, we cannot separate cognitive development from social and emotional development. You can't have one without the other. All development builds on what comes before. So when children experience stable, nurturing relationships, it fosters the development of healthy circuitry. And when children experience uncertainty or instability or abusive or neglectful relationships, it literally disrupts the circuitry and the brain's architecture as it's being built. Over time, this has a wear and tear effect. And the more stress you have, the more causes of stress, and the longer your stress response, the more likely you are to have a whole range of problems later on. It can affect the immune system, it can affect the cardiovascular system, and this is why excessive, prolonged stress early in life is associated with a higher prevalence later, not only of learning problems and behavior difficulties, but also physical and mental health problems. Because the brain is optimally flexible and plastic early in life, but as it develops its circuitry and refines its circuitry, it loses some of its flexibility, which is why intervening early is so important, because as we often say, when it comes to brain circuitry, it's better to get it right the first time than to try to fix it later.
Isn't that interesting? To be able to, and now get back to my PowerPoint. Sorry. Isn't that interesting? And one thing that I know that a lot of us have heard of, that serve and return in language development and in other areas, but it's so important in that social and emotional realm as we look at that. And so I'm going to move on to Help Me Grow, and how our Help Me Grow team that I'm lucky to be a part of can help do screenings or help find ways to know what is normal and what isn't. So I'm just going to now talk about what Help Me Grow is, and one way that we can help with social and emotional screenings. So Help Me Grow is an information and referral helpline, and it's available at no cost. That means it's universal. It's open to anyone in the state of Utah. And it's for parents, physicians, and providers, just to give them the knowledge and the resources to make a difference in a child's life. So we know that there's a lot of physicians that are very busy, and they might not have time to do the referrals or give parents some information. And so we're able to. And I know there's a couple of our parent support specialists on our team on this meeting, and I just want to recognize them for all the work that they do to make the lives of parents and other people that work in the child development field, give them the sort resources, and also the confidence that they're doing a good job. So those are what we call our personal care coordinators, our parent support specialists. We do free child development and prenatal screenings. We do the Edinburgh screenings and screenings for both mothers and fathers. And we have most of the answers to pregnancy, parenting, and child development. And so we connect what we do the most. And once again, I see many of you that we refer to. I see Melanie and Lisa and so many of you that when we have a parent that needs more resources, then we know where to go. And so that is our job, to make your job hopefully easier. So we're going to talk about what a screening is and why we do it and what it is not. So on your right hand side of the PowerPoint, there's what we call a dipstick. And does anyone use a dipstick anymore? Does anybody know what a dipstick is? Heather, what is a dipstick and what do you use it for?
To check the oil on your car, hopefully.
Okay. Hopefully. And why do you mean hopefully?
Because if you don't and you run out without checking it, it's a major problem.
It is a big problem. I have 4 boys and 1 girl, and boy, that was one lesson we learned very quickly, is to make sure that they knew what a dipstick was and how to use it. Because as Heather said, if you don't, the car does not run. But, and I'm going to ask someone else, and if you don't want to answer, you don't have to, but does a dipstick actually tell you what the problem is in a car? Does anybody? Melanie, I see your face. Is it okay if I call on you? Melanie, does a dipstick actually tell you what the problem is?
Can you hear me?
We can just
Okay.
really
Yeah,
loud.
it doesn't tell you. It just tells you, I think, that your oil's dirty or not and how much you have in your car.
Yes. Okay. So just so you know, it is not going to tell you you need a new engine. But if it's going to give you an indication that there might be. When I was trained in the ASQ SE, it was the presenter that used this example, and I'm like, I'm taking that example. I love this because that's what a screening is. It is a brief but accurate, just like our dipstick, it's accurate tool that identifies children if they're on track. It may identify children who would benefit for some practical support in a specific area. And then most importantly, as Lisa Davenport knows, it identifies children at risk who should be referred for further evaluation. And it answers the question, does the child need an in-depth assessment? Because this screening is not that. So as we look at what a screening is and then what monitoring is monitoring is for that child that, you know what, we did it, maybe they did it at the day they turned 4 months old. And so maybe they're not quite where they should be, but we're not going to refer them. We're going to maybe do a couple additional screenings during that time to see if there's things that parents might be doing or not doing in most cases that could get that child up to where they should be. Doesn't mean that they need to be referred. It answers the question, is the child developing on time for a schedule? And I know that a lot of you that work with parents and children, a lot of the time they'll say, well, I don't know if my child can do that. We've never given them a pencil to write with. So it might not be the child, it's because of the experience. So when we give them that experience, then they're able to do that skill. Now, a diagnostic is what many of you do, and you have a lot more experience than those of us at Help Me Grow. It's administered by a trained professional. It determines if there's a delay and to the extent of that delay. And it's involved a lot more time. And it's also, as we know, that those of you that work with autism, those diagnoses can be expensive. It's answering the question, is this child eligible for services? Okay, so the screening that we're talking about today is a screening. It's not a diagnosis. And we need to realize that most of the children are doing great. And some of the children will benefit in a specific area with family support or other support. But a few of those children, and we want to get those few children, will need a referral for an evaluation. So I love this visual aid. It really helps me understand the importance of a screening. Is we can see a large majority of those children, we can see they're typically developing. We know that. And then we know the children that are not. We can see that. But a lot of times what screening does, it's going to reach those children that are under-detected. Okay? So that's why it's important for us to screen so we don't miss those children. Because in the video, it talks about what happens when we miss them. So again, a screening does not diagnose a delay, and a screening does not identify a specific goal or skill. It's only information. One thing that I think is funny in this is, as I've watched parents do screenings, it's based on what's normal for a whole group of children. So it's the norm. And so as parents are doing it and their children are answering yes, 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 then all of a sudden that parent's like, my child is the smartest. And I'm not going to tell them they're not, because that just gives them confidence to keep doing what they're doing. But it is a normative score. It's not that they are that exception. Okay. So once again, if anybody doesn't mind coming off of mute, why is it important to include the parents in the screening process? Because it is the parent that does the screening. We don't do it. Anybody want to answer that?
I'll come off mute.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I think it's important because that way the parent learns and becomes aware of some of the things their child should be doing.
Yeah. Okay, that is such a great response. Thank you. And another reason is because that parent's going to be with that parent for the rest of their child's life. we are only going to see them for a short amount of time. They're going to know that child better. And it's even good to have parents do the screenings together so that they can talk about it. Tiffany, thank you, because the parent is the expert of the child. They really are. And so one of the things that Help Me Grow requires is the parent does the screening. Now, we can read that if they don't understand it, but we will never answer the questions. However, in the state of Utah, we are very fortunate is that a child care provider can do a screening with the parent's permission if the parent does it too. Okay? So, this is just why, and I'm just going to say the last one. Intervention without parent involvement is unlikely to be effective. So that's why one of the reasons it's in. My daughter asked me to skip those because she's like, Mom, that's research based and nobody really cares today. So I'm going to skip those. So now we're going to talk about the social and emotional screening and what it is and how you can do it and just an overview of it. And I'm going to hurry so that Sandra has enough time too. So why screen is research studies shows that behaviors in infancy signal a need for intervention. So we don't wait till we're 5. And the links exist between, just like the video said, and social and emotional competencies are formed through interactions with the primary caregiver. So most of the times when we do the screenings, the parent's behavior will change along with the child, just like Annette said. I love this quote that's from a parent that says, as a parent, I'm always wondering if my kids are on track, if their behaviors they're exhibiting are normal, or should they be worrisome? And this has been helpful to answer some of my questions and then to ease some of the worries. And so the thing that's difficult about doing a screening for social and emotional is the same thing that's abnormal can be normal. Because infants cry. Toddlers don't share. This says struggle, but they just don't share. So let's just be honest. And they fight and they have temper tantrums. One of my professors said something that has always stayed with me. He said there's more aggressive acts in the first 3 years of a child's life than there are in most any normal behavior. So just think, there's more aggressive acts in the first 3 years. That's normal. It's not normal when we're 25, but it's normal when we're 3. And do preschoolers whine, make demands, grab, push, and hit? Yes, they do. So what we look for is there's some crucial features that we look for is the frequency and the intensity. So also the dimensions of external and internal. So it is important to ask, how long is that lasting and how intense? Is there a pattern? And I asked my daughter-in-law if I could share this, and she said yes. Her youngest child would start to cry and would not stop crying for sometimes 3 hours. 3 hours. And that was all the time. It was frequent. And it was intense. And if it wasn't for early intervention, I don't know what would have helped because we did everything. And this is my field. And I wasn't able to help. It was very hard. But we looked for the frequency and the intensity. And also, is it observable, which makes it easy? And also, when it's internal, it is harder. So is screening for social and emotional difficult? It is. And here are some challenges: the age, the context, the family values, and also the health of a child. So what is an ASQ SE? It's a Ages and Stages questionnaire for social and emotional, and this is the 2nd edition. And it's just a series of parent-completed questions for children 1 month to 72 months. It's a tool to identify children that might be at risk. And it's a tool to identify and to respond to parents' concerns so they can know if they're doing a good job. There's 8 different sections. It's not in different domains. And these are the 8 different sections that you can do. And then there's a link so you can go to there. And like I said, it's not in a discrete domain. They represent the overall social and emotional development, and the areas define the intent of the question. So there's going to be 3 or 4 questions that are worded differently, but it's the intent of the question that's going to be answered. And not all the questions are each distributed equally, and not every age is represented in every area. We know autonomy is not something we're going to look for a 3-month-old child. So these are the features of the ASQ, and how often we do it. After 6 months, we do it every 6 months. And then there's 16 questions that are answered at 2 months, up to 36 questions answered at 60 months. And we do adjust it if a child is premature. When all the questionnaire is written at a 4th to 6th grade level, because we want all parents to be able to take it and not feel intimidated. And they also include open-ended questions about eating, sleeping, toileting, because those are some of the most prevalent questions that are doing. And then the one thing that we ask is if there's any additional worries in it. The one thing that I love about the questionnaire is we always ask, what does the child care provider or child caregiver enjoy about the child? Sometimes just being able to take a step back and look at what is important. Why do you love that child? Gives a parent a different description. And I'm just going to end so that Sandra will have enough time. But I do want you to know that there are lots of resources that you can go to. Help Me Grow is just one. But there's so many more that you can turn to. Also, we do have a training for the ages and stages that we get through a grant from the Office of Child Care, that if anyone wants to be trained on the screeners, you can be trained on that so you can have more information. Or if you have any other questions, that you can always reach out to someone at Help Me Grow. So thank you very much for allowing me to come and talk about social and emotional development and also Help Me Grow.
Stephanie, thank you so much. I loved it's always that helpful review to remind us all that social emotional development is important for all of us. Like if we don't have a secure foundation, or I'm struggling and having a really off day, my relationships are all going to be impacted with that. I love that. I also loved the explanation of that it's a brief but accurate tool that helps us identify whether or not further evaluations need to be taken place. I'm going to open it up to questions, but I wanted everybody to see that I dropped the Help Me Grow national. They created a roadmap on family engaged developmental monitoring, that they have a great tool in there that we can go through a checklist to see how well am I doing that family engaged piece during my practice. So just so everybody knows that. I'm going to open it up for a few questions before we turn the time over to Sandra. All right. If there's no questions, then I'm going to have Sandra speak so I can find her on my screen.
Hello there.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to share now my screen. Okay. Um, okay, great. Alrighty, so I just want to do a brief introduction in regards to myself and my program and my role. So, I am the maternal mental health liaison at Bear River Mental Health. Here at Bear River Mental Health, we cover 3 counties. We cover Cache County, Box Elder, and Rich County. My role in the organization is to connect pregnant and postpartum families to licensed clinicians um, as they transition and they go through a big big time in their life regarding parenthood. I don't know if you guys are aware, but the Bear River region within Utah, Bear River region, including Cache County, Box Elder, and Rich, is the second highest in birth rates, with Utah County being the first. And because there is a uptake or a rise in regards to birth rates, we are also seeing an increase in regards to mental health disorders for this demographic, and this demographic including pregnant and postpartum families. Okay. So, when it comes to the perinatal period, which is my expertise area, that word perinatal means from conception to when the parents are um, complete their full year postpartum. So when they conceive up until the postpartum period. And this will make more sense as we dive into my presentation. So the keeping in mind that the perinatal mental health conditions that I'll be touching on refers to mood, anxiety, and anxiety-related disorders that occur during pregnancy or within the 1 year of delivery. These mental health conditions occur because of the onset of pregnancy. Okay. Oh, I went too fast. Sorry. Okay. So depression is the number one complication of childbirth. It affects 1 in 5 to 7 women nationally, within 40% happening during the beginning of pregnancy. Um, so the impact of untreated depression or anxiety during pregnancy includes higher rates of preterm labor, cesarean sections, and preeclampsia. So, because to make that statement a little bit clear, because of the onset of depression, their rates of premature labor, cesarean section, and preeclampsia is higher as well. Um, Half of the Utah women diagnosed with perinatal depression have never experienced any type of mental health conditions in their life. So, and that is something to hone in on, that because of the pregnancy or because of the onset of pregnancy, they will experience mental health illness, more than half of the women in our states. Perinatal mental illness negatively impacts infants, children, adolescents, development, as well as mental health in adulthood as well. Um, Accidental drug overdose and suicide are the top leading cause of death for Utah women during the perinatal period, which is alarming. So, different conditions that you all may encounter dealing with pregnant and postpartum folks, right? So, one of the conditions is called baby blues. And I really want you guys to hone in on the difference between baby blues and other conditions. So, baby blues usually occurs within 2 weeks after the baby is born. If after 2 weeks, certain symptoms or conditions still continue, it is no longer considered baby blues. I did want to hone in on that because I have heard from clients and people that I have interacted with who are pregnant postpartum that, um, some of their providers have kind of put a bandage in regards to baby blues and kind of not dismiss their feelings, but I guess kind of um, miss the opportunity for them to be connected to other resources. So what I mean by that is a client may come in and express to their OB or their midwife that they're feeling down, they're crying a lot, they're overwhelmed, and they may say, "Oh, it's just baby blues," without digging more deeper into the situation. Like, okay, how long has this been occurring? When have you experienced this? So in me making this presentation is to not diminish people in this demographic because they too can also be going through things and um us here in the community, I feel like should do a due diligence in connecting them to resources, especially if they're struggling. So depression, it it affects 14% of new moms. So symptoms that they will experience is appetite, lack of sleep, lack of energy or concentration. They're very irritable. They lack self-care, and some of them may lack interest in the baby. Anxiety disorders, so more than 16% of new moms experience this. They have fear of going outside, they have shortness of breath, their sleep is disturbed, and they also have intrusive thoughts. Postpartum traumatic stress disorder. So 14% are affected. They also have changes in their appetites, lack of interest with the baby, intrusive thoughts. And a lot of these conditions, their symptoms are similar. So that's why it's very important that, they are able to see a clinician um, as soon as possible so that the clinician can be able to identify these conditions that they may be experiencing and hone in on this specific disorder so that they can get treatment specifically for this disorder. Because, like I said, a lot of the symptoms overlap and you really don't know which one they may be going through, or it may be multiple conditions that they're going through as well. So fast. Okay. OCD as well also affects people, pregnant and postpartum people, 4% to be exact. Um, they have compulsive behaviors. They repeat a lot of things, a lot of behaviors. They may have thoughts of harm as well. And bipolar disorder too also impacts this demographic. They will have unusual shift of mood, energy. They may become manic as well. So another um, a thing I want to hone in on is miscarriages do happen, and pregnancy loss and infertility. So 10 to 25% of all pregnancies end in miscarriages, and that's for people under the age of 35. 1 to 5% of women experience two or more pregnancy loss. Nearly 20% of women who experience a miscarriage become symptomatic for depression or anxiety, and a majority of those affected, symptoms persist for 1 to 3 years after the miscarriage or the loss, impacting quality of life and subsequent pregnancy. Symptoms or that they may show is they may be over uh, overthinking in regards to the next pregnancy. Like, am I going to lose this one? They may become anxious when the baby is born. Is my baby going to be alive? So things as such, they're always on fight or flight mode, so to speak. Um, 1 in 8 or 12% of couples have trouble getting pregnant, and there are a range of complex connection between mental health and infertility. Fathers and partners. So 1 in 10 fathers um, gets perinatal postpartum depression, and up to 60% of fathers suffer from anxiety disorders during the perinatal period as well. So fathers, partners, they are not exempt from getting mental health conditions. So our goal for our program is to improve the access of maternal mental health intervention and treatment by strengthening community referral pathways and providing seamless transitions in care for people who are at risk for or currently have a behavioral health condition in the perinatal and postpartum period. And what I mean by that is I do a lot of outreach in regards to my role. I seek out local hospitals, health departments, other nonprofit organization, and letting them know that we have specific clinicians who are trained to treat pregnant and postpartum folks. I also connect them to resources in their area. So resources meaning SNAP, local food banks, WIC, if they need diapers as well, because we know that if their needs are met, therapy will be more effective. They'll be able to see results because their needs are met and they're not struggling or thinking of, um, you know, providing. They're more able to receive the therapy services and not necessarily have to worry about paying their rent or a provider for diapers. Those resources are given to them in addition to the therapy services, which is very important. So we also implement the Edinburgh screening as well. Um, so that the screening is given to mothers, fathers, partners, and this screening helps to identify perinatal depression or anxiety as well. It consists of 10 questions. It's recommended that the Edinburgh is done during the first perinatal visit, one time during each trimester of the pregnancy, 1 to 2 days after giving birth, and 2 and 6 weeks postpartum, and up to 1 year overall or from the pregnancy loss. Um, Screening and proper treatment improves health outcome for moms and babies. And I know that the screenings are done at OBGYN clinics, um, also at WIC. They're done multiple places. And it's important that the screenings are done regularly because things do change for this demographic. One day they may be fine, and then the next day they may need some help. So it is important for them to be screened on a regular basis. Okay. So like I said before, the questions are there's 10 and the scoring is out of 30 points. Any score that is 10 or greater means that the person could experience depression or anxiety. And the Edinburgh is also validated in multiple languages too. This is a screenshot of what the questions consist of. And then depending on the score is what will be implemented as well. So here's just a breakdown as to what to do. What are the next steps or the further steps, depending on the score. So some risk factors that this demographic, pregnant and postpartum families may experience, if they already have um, depression or anxiety before the pregnancy, they are at a higher risk. If they're dealing with financial troubles, so things like making sure they have resources or are connected to resources is going to help them tremendously and decrease their risk of these risk factors. Organizations that help to bridge that gap in regards to making sure these demographic needs are met are very important. Um, Lack of support system. Um, if a family or pregnant postpartum families are married, if they don't have insurance. So there's multiple reasons why their risk would be high for depression or anxiety or any mental health condition. So this sunshine is an acronym for sleep, understand, nutrition, support, humor, information, nutrition, and exercise. And it's just a a paper that I like to give my families um, to remind them that these things are important. Not to say that they don't know already, but a lot of them are dealing with lack of sleep, they're not eating. So gentle reminders as such helps them with their everyday life and also helps them in adjusting to their new role as being a parent to their new baby as well. Okay. Um, I don't think we have time for that, but this next slide, I did want to hone in on it. It is the maternal mental health hotline. So for this demographic of pregnant and postpartum people, they have a special hotline. It's just like 988, but this hotline is specifically geared towards them that they can call. It's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Um, if they need additional support, if it's at night or um, you know, out of office hours, they can call and they'll be connected to someone that can help them. And yeah, that is the end of my presentation.
Wonderful. I love that. And I think that, thinking about these two topics, they are so interrelated, right? Like if a mom is not feeling very well, she's going to have a hard time relating to her child. So I love that we talked about both of those. And I loved your acronym of sunshine. I've never heard or seen that one before. I love sunshine, so it's going to be an easy one for me to remember. I'm going to stop talking for a minute and see if anybody has any questions for Sandra. Heather, you have your hand raised?
Sandra, the question I had is the recommendation. So if someone's working with a family or mother and recognizes that there is a concern for maternal mental health and mom's interested in receiving services or getting assistance, is the recommendation primary care, or to help them go straight to getting a mental health professional?
Yeah, great question. So here in the state of Utah, we actually have a referral network that that we're trying to spread the word. So the referral network, and I don't know what state you are in, Heather. I don't want to assume that you're in Utah State, But
I'm here in Utah,
okay, good,
but
good.
just kind of even generally speaking, just, what is kind of that best, network of support, because a lot of times that's kind of a tricky thing for parents or individuals to figure out, like, where do I go
Right.
support, especially if you're really feeling that stress and you really are experiencing a lot of the drag from the mental health difficulties, like, and you maybe don't really have the motivation to do a lot, like,
Yeah.
trying to get that support quickly is key. So
Right. So the maternal provider network, I believe that's the name of it. It has a list of providers within Utah State who have done extensive training with postpartum support internationals, and they are the leading members in regards to mental health, in regards to making sure that licensed clinicians have been trained to help this demographic. So that's the first thing I would do. And I will include it in the chat as well too. Um, in the referral network, you're able to choose your location. You're able to choose if you want to do telehealth. So I will refer clients to there so that they can decide which clinician they would like to see and then go from there. I'm sure each state, or has something similar to that, people who have been trained through postpartum support internationals and understands what they're going through as well, because it is very important with this demographic to have clinicians, to have people who understand their life, their current life experience. I hope that makes sense.
yes, thank you very much.
And then I thought I saw another hand raised, but it must have dropped. Other questions or comments that any of our participants have?
I do. Um, so I've been kind of looking into a lot of like perinatal substance abuse and like nows and NAWs. So let's say you did have maybe a mother or a father who was in the family and they are going through substance use disorder. What would be kind of your next steps in helping them? And like what would be your referrals? Would you refer them to another network maybe, or do you have like resources within your own network? But what would that process kind of look like?
I would say that I first of all would make sure that they would want resources. Because a lot of times people who are dealing with substance abuse, um, they're not necessarily ready for resources, or sometimes it's like it's forced upon, because you can give them everything that you feel as though they need, but is that really what they need, so to speak? So if we have moved past the fact that, yes, they are open to resources and they are open to receiving services, I would first see what the health department in the local area provides in regards to substance abuse, if they provide counseling. I know a lot of organizations help too with childcare as well. So, yeah, I think that's very important that the client is willing to be engaged first before implementing resources to them. Um, so yeah, that's what I would suggest.
Thank you. I think I honestly forget that first part where the client really does have to kind of want it and want to have that change. But thank you. Yeah.
Great. Well, great questions and great discussion. Because we are short on time, we are not going to do our case presentation today. So make sure that you come back. I know I just saw Kurt's face. He's really sad about that one. Again, next month we will have our case presentation shared. So, and again, if you would like to do a case presentation, please reach out to Time to Act at usu.edu and we will get you on the schedule. Our session next month is following right along to these two that we had today, and it is that protective factors and strengthening families. It will be on September 17th. So we're looking forward to that one, and hopefully all of you can join us. Thank you all for your time today, and have a great rest of your day.